Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers of this channel. My name is Sean, and today we got to talk about what is going on in New York City, because the migrant crisis is still a major thing. We have reports of another stabbing out of the Randall's Island shelter, but today we really got to focus in on this migrant robbery gang, because one of the things that's so striking to a lot of people in the general public is the fact that so many of these participants are underage. In fact, there was an arrest for somebody who was one of the main initiators of these robberies, and it turned out that that suspect was 11 years old. Not to mention the fact that these robberies are being conducted by a large group, a wolf pack, if you will, in broad daylight in Central Park. Now, we're going to get into this. We're going to talk about how New York is probably not going to do anything significant about it. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
And police now say a young crew of migrants is largely behind the surge in crime in Central Park. In fact, one of the suspects, just 11 years old.
So I just want to point a few things out for everybody out there in the audience. So right now we have the NYPD reporting that the surge in crime that is going on in Central Park is due in large part to a crew of illegal migrants, illegal aliens, whatever you want to call them, asylum fraudsters, all are acceptable over here on this channel. But I also want you guys to understand that upon arrest, the NYPD does not add in immigration status to their police statistics. So you will hear from all these different various media outlets that migrants do not commit a disproportionately high amount of crime and all these other various deflections. But the fact of the matter is, if you're only measuring this upon conviction and you're measuring citizen crime, or you're including everyone in citizen crime upon arrest, you will never have any adequate statistics to demonstrate an illegal migrant crime wave ever almost anywhere in the country, because most places do not incorporate that in the stats. On top of that, one of the tricks that you guys might notice in the statistics is that they will oftentimes compare it to the general American crime rate, which is greatly inflated by Black Americans' crime rate. And what you'll see is that they'll have a lower rate than the overall population, but if you were to remove that one demographic, their crime rate would be significantly higher. And that is quite deceptive. If these people make up the second highest crime rate demographic in this nation, as compared to Black Americans, they technically, by the statistics, would lower the crime rate, but they're still the second highest crime committing demographic in this nation. Just some things that you guys should pay attention to whenever you're being presented these statistics. But let's move on to this specific case.
So, new details. We just got images of two suspects police are looking for. The NYPD says these two males are connected to this young migrant robbery pattern here in Central Park. It's alleged they targeted two 20-year-olds on Tuesday night and forcibly took 3 chains, a hat, and a vape. This developing story includes at least 10 cases here in Central Park. The suspects, all migrants, according to police.
So we get 2 images of the suspects. If anybody out there in the audience recognizes or sees these suspects, do not engage with them, but contact law enforcement. The NYPD has its own tip line so that they can be arrested. But as you heard right there, the NYPD is alleging that these suspects are migrants. They're illegal migrants. They're claiming asylum fraudulently in this country, like so many people Joe Biden encouraged to come into this nation, and Kamala Harris, as the borders are allowed in this nation. And of course, we have another instance of them violently taking property from people, and let us not be fooled by the fact that they are underage. Typically, they are within the parameters of gang recruiting age. Now, of course, we have a very notable suspect who eventually did get arrested who was just 11 years old, and that is considered unusual in the United States of America. But remember, these people are bringing their culture and tradition from Central America, which is very gang-ridden, so it's not atypical for them over there.
By the hinges of Central Park at 59th and 7th, a visual police presence.
It is surprising to see a lot of police. I feel like, I don't know, a police presence mostly makes me feel safe.
Now, I just want to point out for everybody out there in the audience that the NYPD marching out in force in this level of numbers is very atypical for modern day Central Park. Sure, there were periods of time when the park was in decay, where it was very crime ridden. In fact, very famous cases of criminality came out of Central Park. Now people are trying to rewrite history on those. You know what I'm talking about, Central Park 5. But the fact of the matter is, for a long time, the park has been cleaned up. It was taken over from the city by a charity organization that manages it, that keeps it clean and whatnot. And of course, like many things in the 90s in New York City, it was getting better for a very long time. So for us to regress all the way back to the point where we have wolf packs in Central Park, gang members robbing and assaulting people, having fun, and doing all this crap is quite sad. It's quite troubling. But what do you expect when state laws end up aiding and abetting these criminals, as well as district attorneys like Alvin Bragg? One of the policies that I've criticized time and time again is raise the age, which of course says if you're under 18, they're going to treat you like a baby, an innocent angel, not prosecute you to the full extent of the law because, oh my God, we can't tell the difference between a 17-year-old and a 1-year-old baby. How could they possibly form the intent? And by the way, raise the age was actually put into place before the pandemic. And what did we see? Dramatic increases in criminality and in recidivism in violent crimes for suspects that would have normally been prosecuted to the full extent of the law. Each and every category of reoffenders went up by 10%. At least. Now, when you mix in with that New York State bail reform, which allows most criminals to have a guaranteed same-day automatic release without any bail, without any judgment from a judge, and programs like less is more, which is also a state law, which means if you're on probation or parole, then parole officers and probation officers have limited ability to violate that probation or parole. Obviously, that leaves a situation ripe for abuse for repeat offenders who continuously face no consequences. On top of that, we have District Attorney Alvin Bragg, who has downgraded or dismissed 52% of felony cases to misdemeanors compared to 39% in all of 2019. And has also let the conviction rate slip to just 51%, down from 68% in 2019, which of course is the last year before the court system was all messed up due to the pandemic. And yes, Central Park is under the Manhattan jurisdiction, so it is very likely that these illegal migrants, who should be deported along with their parents, by the way, are going to get off scot-free when they're eventually captured, despite the fact that they are mobbing up and attacking people in a large group, and we have about 10 reported instances. Who knows how many unreported instances there actually are.
In this video released to Fox 5 News by the NYPD, you see a group of young males believed to be migrants allegedly on their way to commit a crime. The NYPD says a current young migrant robbery pattern is a driving force behind the increased boots on the ground here.
Now right here you see in the surveillance video this large group of migrants. By my count, you have about 15 right here, but there have been reports of larger groups of migrant teens, of these illegal immigrants attacking and robbing people, and essentially setting back Central Park decades in the state of New York, in the city of New York, to the bad old days. And this is just allowed to happen by a confluence of factors, including the fact that these illegal migrants have God-tier rights above the citizens. And you'll remember people asked for even more God-tier rights for these illegal migrants, because when they were being evicted from the Watson Hotel, they ended up demanding that they get access to free penthouse apartments on Billionaires Row.
Volunteer advocates argue the city should put these migrants in some of the most expensive pieces of real estate in the world.
He could have easily, along with Governor Hochul, opened up all the vacant luxury apartments. We are on 57th Street right now. This is Billionaires Row. Half of the super towers on this street are empty.
Of course, that begs the question, who would pay for all those luxury apartments?
Some of the richest real estate in the world, apparently these illegals are supposedly entitled to, according to the progressive left.
Until we fix this, we'll be out there.
NYPD Chief of Patrol John Schell says at least 10 cases are connected to young migrant suspects who he says are concentrating on the southern part of the park. Detectives say the suspects are working in groups of up to 12, targeting victims for whatever they can get.
Now, because most of you guys are not New Yorkers, you don't live here, you guys might not be familiar with New York, I think I need to highlight the significance of what was just said right there, because according to the local news, the NYPD is saying that this migrant crime wave is concentrated in the southern part of Central Park. This is in and around 60th Street, and typically, even in the bad old days, this would be the safest part of Central Park. This would be the place where a lot of the tourists go. Sure, there's the zoo and all that, and most of the danger in Central Park would be in the northern part of it. That's where almost all the famous instances of criminality are, because that would be near neighborhoods like Harlem. This is actually near Billionaires Row, near the Watson Hotel.
We are on 57th Street right now.
By the entrance of Central Park at 59th and 7th.
Near where there are migrant shelters. So should we be surprised that this particular crime wave, which is atypical even in the bad old days of Central Park, has to do with the migrants when it is closer to the very shelter that I was just talking about, closer to the very migrant base of operations where they're getting all these handouts from the taxpayer.
And their young kids, including an 11-year-old just arrested in a different crime yesterday, connected to all this by credit cards.
When he was arrested yesterday, was on video using credit cards that were taken from the robberies in Central Park.
Yeah, this is ridiculous in every possible way. All of these people flood to the city of New York. Why do they come here? Because there are generous benefits in New York that are not found in almost any part of the country. Right to shelter, all these other perks that these people come for. They live off the taxpayer dole. They're not even accepting and happy with the fact that they're living on the largesse of the taxpayer. We put them up in hotels. We treat them better than American citizens that are homeless. Some of which, in fact, a huge portion of which are returning veterans from foreign conflicts, and this is how they repay us. They send their kids out into the world to rob people, steal their credit cards, and we can catch children as young as 11 participating in these crimes. Deport them immediately. 100% of them need to get out of this country, not just out of this city, because this is absolutely disgusting. And again, it is a rebuke to the intent of the asylum system that they're coming here and committing crimes, forming up gangs and attacking citizens. And we not only shouldn't have to pay the price in terms of our tax dollars being diverted to these illegal migrants that are defrauding the asylum system, but then to add insult to injury, they're stealing from people directly, robbing them in our major tourist sites, which is going to drive down people wanting to even visit these places, making the city worse and worse. This is what we call a death spiral, and it is due in large part to these illegal migrants. Now, of course, we have a bunch of laws that end up aiding and abetting them, and although I named the normal laws that help everyday criminals avoid accountability, I also want to point out that our sanctuary city, sanctuary state laws, because yes, there are both, that protect these people from ICE deportation also don't help. Now, Eric Adams is saying that if you're arrested for crimes, then they should be able to amend that so you can be deported. Obviously, that would be a step in the right direction. But the fact of the matter is, with Kamala Harris as the border czar, she's decided to let everyone in on Joe Biden's orders, and this is the result of that.
The park is a large area. Those who work here understand the need to keep it safe. Pedicab operator Kenny Winter is on alert.
You can arrest them all you want, but if you're not going to prosecute them, what's the point?
You know, on this channel, I can preach the gospel to you guys out there in the audience, but I wonder if it's translating. I wonder if people are understanding what's going on. And then I see an interview of an average everyday citizen, a normal person working a normal job, saying the obvious. If you arrest them, you can do that as many times as you want, but if you don't prosecute them, there's no consequences. You're not going to get any change. Average everyday people understand this. They know that something is wrong, and they know that the thing that aids these criminals more than anything is the system that was specifically broken to aid the criminals. Because, oh my god, these innocent angel Aladdins, they're just robbing people, stealing their identity, beating the crap out of them in order to feed their starving family. Shouldn't we feel oh so sad for these people who, by the way, are getting and entitled to more welfare than the poor citizens in the United States of America, than the homeless residents who are citizens in the city of New York? We should just gush over them.
We've reported NYPD statistics show an increase in crime in the park overall, with a 200% increase in robberies specifically this year so far compared to last.
So yeah, obviously the NYPD is really good at collecting crime statistics. They're the most data-driven police department, and it is quite noticeable even in the CompStat numbers that we've seen this uptick in robberies in Central Park in particular. And of course, we talked about earlier how this appears to be concentrated in lower Central Park, in southern Central Park, which is not typical. This is usually the nicer, richer area that is more populated with people, but it's understandable because a large portion of these suspects are migrants, although you will not see that represented in the data because, of course, the NYPD doesn't track this. You might see some disproportionate Latino numbers that are a little bit higher than years previous, but the fact of the matter is we also should demand that this stuff is documented upon arrest so we can get an accurate gauge of the problem.
These two young women are both 20, the same age as some of the recent victims we reported on as we're covering this young migrant robbery pattern.
I feel like, I don't know, a police presence mostly makes me feel safe.
So they interview these two girls, and of course one of them says she feels much safer with the police patrolling in and around this area, and then they ask a follow-up question, and for all the credit that I gave that man that spoke earlier for knowing what's up, knowing what's going on, I'm going to have to retract that for this next person, because it's this kind of ignorance of what goes on and criminals that actually leads to bad policy.
And hearing that they're young people that are doing this, is that surprising to you at all?
It is, honestly. I wouldn't expect that.
Look, I don't want to come down too hard on this girl for her ignorance because she's 20 years old and 20-year-olds don't know anything. I mean, have you seen the Zoomer memes on the internet.com? They are vapid and empty, and this is what you can expect. However, unfortunately, she's also 20 years old and her vote counts the same as mine. So the fact that she doesn't know that the peak offending years for males across all demographics, not just illegal migrants, is ages 14 to 24 is a huge problem. The fact that she's surprised by this, even though this has been a proven statistical fact for decades in this country, it is quite literally textbook the demographic that is committing this crime. It is just something that is just so unforgivable, especially again when these people vote based on those policies. When they vote to give these people breaks because, oh my god, they're just innocent little baby angels, even though this is one of the most dangerous groups of people, just in terms of age, by the way, and sex, because obviously males disproportionately in the entire country. But yeah, this is what we're dealing with. For every person who knows what's up, for every person who knows what's going on, we have ignorant people that are surprised by basic facts and basic reality. And of course, the only thing that is a little bit notable in this particular case is that one of the people arrested is 11. But again, when you factor in the cultural differences between Americans and American criminality and Latin American or Central American criminality, that should also not be surprising. You're importing a bunch of gang members, giving them a bunch of welfare, free stuff. They have nothing but free time. What do you expect them to do? But you know what? Those are just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. And as per usual, if you like this video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on the social medias, support me via support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the migrant youth crime wave. Till next time.